Well, I'm so happy that Emily from the James Beard Foundation has been able to join me today. We wanted to talk today about the James Beard Foundation Kvarøy Arctic Women in Scholarship Fund that we have just established, that was announced with an incredible announcement that you made about a number of other scholarships with the James Beard Foundation. So I wanted to first ask you about the foundation, because earlier we were talking about just so much of the foundation and its history was to establish the opportunity for people to study in the culinary arts and beyond.
Yeah, and I think you made such a good point, which is that the history of the Beard Foundation is really steeped in the awards that people forget how important education was to James Beard. That some of people's fondest memories of him are knocking on the door of his house on 12th Street, and he would do a cooking class for everybody in his kitchen. And so really carrying on that legacy of education and the importance of education has been super important for our scholarship program, which was started in 1991. So it's one of our earliest, longest standing programs. We've given out now close to $8 million in scholarships, and we've gotten to see the evolution and the growth of so many of our recipients.
It really is amazing. And I know that there have been a lot of different people that have established scholarships with the James Beard Foundation for, I think, that very reason, that there's this history and this connection to James Beard. And I was honored enough to have met him. I actually met Julia Child, and to see, I think it was she and Peter Kump, to see and really give reverence to the cooking classes and the connection that he felt in terms of what his legacy would truly be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why this scholarship is just like the perfect kind of tie-in of all of our programs. That we have our impact programs, which include our women's leadership programs focused on, putting more women into positions of power and taking over this very male-dominated space. And then we have our Smart Catch program, which Jennifer, you're super involved with my colleague Sarah Drew, that is all about sustainable seafood. So it's this combination of scholarships, women's leadership, and sustainable seafood all in one kind of like amazingly packaged opportunity.
I know this thing about, we talk a lot about gender equality, and certainly the Me Too movement brought a lot of that to the forefront. I know it brought back a lot of memories for me in the kitchen. This is sort of what we expected as women, that this was the environment that we were going to be living in. And you almost forget, until people started to tell those stories about, wow, I was in that situation too. And I found it very interesting when we started to talk about establishing this scholarship. One, yes, I mean, there's this incredible history for me with the foundation, and I do want to get into Smart Catch and the connections here. But one of the things, I was with James Beard nominated Tracy Desjardins, and Tracy was talking about Jardiniere. And she had just closed Jardiniere, but it was really compelling to me. She said, people would come in and they would apply for jobs. And here I was, this very, very busy restaurateur. And what I did was I wanted to bring somebody in and have them be already up to speed based on their experience. And we were off and running. The problem was that kind of cycle of hiring meant that there weren't the types of opportunities for women, because they weren't maybe put into those positions in French kitchens for the type of chef that she was looking for. She said it was her biggest regret that, having been in the LGBTQ community, a woman in a woman that was a restaurateur, that she regretted not having taken a deep breath, taken a moment, and said, I'm going to bring this person in and now help train them and bring them up to that level of where maybe 5 or 6 of the other male applicants would have been. I think we forget that. And that was what was so interesting to me when the decision was made to tackle this as an impact program. So talk about that, because inequality in the kitchen, I mean, what are the percentages still of women in the kitchen as compared to men?
Yeah, so what we know is that over 50% of women are graduating from culinary school, but less than 7% are head chefs or executive chefs. And this is
Wow.
this, if you're following this stuff, then you've seen it before. And it's really jarring. So we really set out to find out what the gap was. Why was it so hard for women to succeed? And there isn't one straight answer, as you know, like many things, but there are a few answers, which is that kitchen culture makes it very difficult for women to succeed, whether or not they want a family, if there's, you know, sexual harassment or something of that nature, it pushes a lot of women out of the industry. And
Mhm.
so on kind of to take it one step further, we realize that when women are at the top, the entire kitchen culture changes from the top down, especially now with everybody paying attention to this. So it's not really enough to just give women education and say, let's go on our way. What we wanted to do is double down on this idea of ownership,
Mhm.
putting women at the helm so that we could more effectively change. You know, it has like a multiplier effect on all of these different cultures. So
Mhm.
that's what most of our programming is focused on entrepreneurship. We have it at a couple of different stages. All those programs are in person, but there is a lot of
Right.
online programming that we have, including a whole suite of webinars, all kind of focused on this idea of entrepreneurship. And it's like you said, you know, we want to level the playing field so somebody doesn't show up in someone's kitchen for an interview and not have that experience and not have that education. But also, if they want to start their own business, then they can do that. I
Mhm.
think there's another piece too, which is success doesn't always mean having a restaurant empire. To some women, success means
No.
sustainably running one business. To some people, success means sustainably running one business. But
Mhm.
we should all have the ability to choose whether we want to have a restaurant empire or not. All those options should be on the table.
Mhm. And there's so many places that also affect supply chain. I mean, there are a lot of parts that make that sum when it comes to a restaurant. And I think that was one of the reasons why we were so compelled to do this fund. So let's talk a little bit about Smart Catch, because this is where these two ideas came together in terms of impact, women, and then also fish and seafood, because the numbers, to be honest, aren't much better in fish and seafood. Now, some of that it was like in the kitchen, the perception that women were not strong enough, physically strong enough to be fishers and be water farmers. So there's that, but then it's also much more complex, isn't it? I mean, the foundation's role in Smart Catch and what they're doing at the distributor level and throughout the supply chain.
Yeah, and I resent that about strength because I carried a 200-pound dresser down the stairs the other day. I had some help, but I felt very strong doing it. But no, that's a great point. I think you're right. It is, the inequality is all along the supply chain. It's in almost everything that the restaurant industry touches, unfortunately. And so that's why the scholarship is it's so great, because when you start at the supply chain, you really start at the beginning. You can start influencing things that go further along the supply chain. So just making women more visible in these areas where they weren't previously visible can do so much to help inspire and empower others. And our Smart Catch program, which I touched on a little bit before, focuses on, it's an educational program. Jennifer, honestly, you probably know more about it than I do after working with Sam, but it's an educational program that helps chefs make different choices in their restaurants and sub out one option for a better, more sustainable option. And then we recently launched our supplier program, which just makes it a little bit easier on everybody involved. If you know that the supplier is Smart Catch certified, then you know that everything that you're getting from that supplier is like good to go.
Mhm. It's such an incredibly hard and complex thing because fish and seafood changes hands more times than anything that comes into the restaurant. I was having a conversation about that when we were talking about blockchain, because people have been very reticent to accept blockchain because understanding the whole supply chain and really needing to engage in it. I mean, we say we want transparency, but we don't always necessarily want to engage and actually have to activate that and work at that. And in fish and seafood, there are a lot of problems. So Smart Catch, I think, has enabled chefs and suppliers to be able to bring the information, because it's all about data. So get the data into the right hands so we at least we can make informed choices about our sourcing. And I think that really brings up a great point, which is that, when I think about my grandfather, who was a third generation rancher out on the range in Colorado, let me tell you something, he couldn't have done it without his women. I mean, they may not have had their name on the land deed, but they were the ones that were out there, moving the hay and making sure that the salt licks were out on the plains, and that the windmills that were pulling the water, that those weren't frozen in the winter. And I mean, all the way down to a general store that my grandmother worked at and was bringing in goods and selling things from the ranch to out all to the community. So I think, we touch this in so many different ways. And that was one of the motivations for Kvarøy Arctic, was that we understand that technology is making farms better now. And so we're really driving efficiencies, water use, and all of that on land-based farms, and feed models are doing that for all different types of protein production. And what we've said is, and I think you can see this with the foundation, is that there are a lot of ways that it's important to contribute. And when it comes to this scholarship fund, that's the same case. We've gotten questions about, do you have to be going to cooking school? And I don't know how you'd be studying aquaculture if you were at culinary school, but what we're seeing is that a lot of people are asking the question, but there are a lot of different ways that the study of aquaculture can touch the marketplace. So it's not just working on the water, that this scholarship is open and available to anyone that's touching those pieces that attribute and contribute to aquaculture. And we wanted to see more women. I mean, we sort of started to do the math and realized at Kvarøy Arctic, when our CEO started, there were no women working on the farm. And, bringing that understanding and that nuance, I think, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's by far the scholarship that I get the most emails about to my inbox, which I'm sure is, a combination of the relevance and rising popularity of this industry. And Jennifer, you're like hustling, getting it out there, and doing all of that marketing. But it's been such a pleasure to get all these emails from women who are like, I'm studying aquaculture, and how can I apply to this scholarship? And it's all out there. And it's not a surprise necessarily, but it's been a really kind of welcome thing to see how many women are studying this and interested in this. It really, I think, just gives so much validity to an already amazing opportunity.
Well, and so the FAO, when we look at what the UN has said about protein production, I mean, there's a lot of conversation about plant forward food and plant-based foods. And I mean, the reality is that the FAO, the statistics are that this is the most sustainable, most important protein production on the planet, and that it is the most resource efficient in terms of raising of food for this growing population. And when we think about it, especially in times like this, it really makes us think about supply chain and technology and data, which all really equates to something being more sustainable, safety aligning with sustainability. And so I think that it's really important that more people get involved in it. And one of the things I wanted us to talk about was it's an international scholarship, which is only the second time this has happened in the foundation's history, right?
Yeah, it's only one of 2 international scholarships being offered this year. I can't say for certain if we've ever done them before, but it's very, very rare to have something that's open to international students.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really kind of amazing that we're doing this. So just so exciting. Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make sure for those that tune in, and of course we're going to record this and we're going to push it out, that we're really clear. You could be on a family farm farming shrimp in Vietnam and want to go to university in Vietnam and study science in order to be able to make your family farm more efficient. You could be studying the rearing of mussels in the Patagonia and be able to go to the University of Chile in Santiago and maybe figure out what type of efficiencies there need to be in terms of equipment. You could be going to school in Norway, where education is actually paid for as a citizen of Norway, but you might need help on things like your books and your cost of living and all of that. These are all of the things that we want to be able to help support. And so I hope that we're making that clear to everyone, that it really is about supporting you where you are. Aquaculture is important worldwide. And we know that, for example, where fisheries are getting depleted, aquaculture is starting to giving people an opportunity, giving you the opportunity to stay on the water, learn how to raise fish and seafood in the right way, and be able to help create an economy around that where you might have had bad practices when it came to managing your fishery, because we know there are lots of places where fish is not available where it used to be. There are women that are farming seaweed in Maine, incredible farms that are regenerative aquaculture, that we hope maybe this type of a scholarship might inspire some of those more nuanced species and products to be farmed. And so you never know where some innovative badass woman is going to get out there and try to come up with something completely different, and that affects the entire, I think will affect the entire planet in terms of what we think about. And I don't want someone to not be thinking of applying for this just because maybe they're looking at something maybe smaller. I had a conversation with a woman that wanted to actually raise oysters along Apalachicola in Florida, because that's another area that's been significantly depleted by climate change. And I was like, this is exactly why you should go to school. You can go to the University of Florida and study aquaculture and learn how to do this in the best way possible to then contribute back to what you would consider to be your own region, your home.
Yeah, there's so much out there. And I think about Sarah Drew, who launched our Smart Catch program, who you've worked with, who is, often, unless you're there, Jennifer, one of the only women on these calls that you would be on all the time about seafood. And she's just like such an inspiration. She knows everything about everything there is to know about sustainable seafood and Smart Catch and everything that we do. And so just get involved, and there's no reason not to. You can be a trailblazer. You can sort of make your own path. I think that's one of the other things that I love about this scholarship too, is that there is this one seemingly kind of specific requirement, but it's not really all that specific. The more you look into it, the more that you can see how many possibilities and opportunities there are.
And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that everyone understood was that in order to get to the level of farming where Kvarøy Arctic is, we didn't do it alone. We had incredible partners. This, to be in the spirit of good animal husbandry, in the spirit of improvement, you have to do this with a wide range of partners and connections. That could be on packaging. That could be in feed. Again, that could be the ropes, or it could be the nets, the technology. There's a woman, believe it or not, that started a company where they're using 3D printers and they're producing robots that look like salmon, and they go under the water and they collect all the data on size, on disease, on how much feed they're eating. I mean, all of these different data points. It's called Aqui. And so I think about how if someone wanted to come and study and got this scholarship, it's not just about going to Kvarøy Island and learning about what we do out there. We would probably talk to our partners about having an internship at the feed maker, maybe at Biomar, maybe it would be working with Lainey at Aquai. So it's all of these things that we really feel excited about. We look at this scholarship as a partnership. We're going to be learning as much from this person, this woman that's going to get this scholarship, as we're going to give to them. So it's this, in the idea of being in the spirit of continuous improvement, having that lens of being in school, learning new innovation, where we might be able to take a little idea that they've learned about. Maybe it's like our microalgae in our feed, and then be able to give that to Biomar and have them work that up the food chain on their internship. It's so much more than just, here's the scholarship and then go do your thing. We want to be bringing more women in aquaculture as we look to the future of our food system. And so what everyone should know is that it's a $10,000 scholarship that you apply for on a yearly basis. We're open to it being, if you apply each year because you need the money and the time each year that you're in school, we're open to it being the same person year over year. We also include an internship, and we'll pay for the travel to come out and to be able to work on the farm, or again, like I said, as we started to talk about it, if the emphasis of the studies that you're doing don't apply necessarily at the farm level, finding the place where you would be best suited and excited and passionate. And then the other thing that, Emily, you don't know is, if we get more than one qualified person, we're going to give out more than one scholarship this year.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So
that's great. And it's one of only a handful of our scholarships that we're offering this year where there is this kind of continued communication and an additional internship opportunity. That's really rare, and is due in no small part to the commitment by all you guys over there at Kvarøy, and just really committed to making this happen and seeing the whole life cycle of somebody's career through, which is incredible.
Exactly. I mean, we are champions of this amazing family. You know, we thank so much Alf Goran Knudsen, who you got the chance to meet at the Beard House. We also thank Yerman and Avard and Ida, who are the siblings whose father and grandfather founded the farm. Aquaculture doesn't have a lot of stories of certainly not finfish farming, of a fourth generation family farm. And this is only just the beginning. We have education programs for K through 12 students that we're going to be doing. We've got a lot of things as we head towards our 50th anniversary, and it's all going to be about establishing a legacy of aquaculture that's sustainable, that's ethical, that can be passed on to the next generation. So this is just one part of how we feel like we're creating this chain of well-being that starts at the farm and goes all the way to market. And right here is the James Beard Foundation in that chain of well-being with us. So we are so grateful, Emily, to you and to Catherine and to Claire and everyone there to making this happen in such an amazing way. I know we couldn't have done it on our own. We are so happy to have partnered with you, and grateful for you, and grateful for all of the work that you're doing right now for restaurants in this really unbelievable time. So thank you for all of your stewardship.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. I always feel like so energized and fired up after we talk. I'm like, remember I was out there just making things happen, and I need to go do the same.
And you are, because really you're the one that we're watching and following, and we thank you for taking this time. I know things are really crazy. Please stay safe, stay well. We are going to look forward to sitting and breaking bread at the James Beard House, as we did in February, to be back with you and to be able to toast this amazing accomplishment, and maybe, of course, be able to do that with our scholarship recipient. So scholarships applications are open. You might want to tell everybody where to find it so they can apply and let their friends know.
Yes, definitely. So scholarships are open. They close on June 11th. You can find them by heading to our website. It's jamesbeard.org/scholarships. There's one application link that submits you for all of the eligible applications. A lot of times we have a student receiving more than one scholarship, so no worries about being qualified or disqualified for anything. If you get something based on the criteria that you enter, you'll be automatically submitted for the Kvarøy scholarship. So I know that those were a couple of the questions that I got, but amazing. It's all there. Our email is there if you have any other questions for us. And yeah, I think.
And there we go. So please get everyone out looking to apply. Look at the list. I mean, there's so many amazing things. This is not just culinarily open. I mean, there's a lot that we can do to make impact in this growing and changing world every single day. Emily, thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to look forward to talking to you again. You have to promise, maybe we can do this again when we get a little closer to the deadline, and then we can kind of push everybody and remind them that they need to apply. Thank you for all of you do. It is such an honor to know you and to just be a little bit of this incredible ecosystem that you have been building at the James Beard Foundation.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day. Take care. Bye now.